the difference between being awake and asleep, not as big as we'd like to think.
No, not at all. No, I mean, you're right. It's that was the great creative challenge for this of writing this book for me, was to kind of come in as somebody who doesn't come from medicine or from science. My background is as a literature major. It seemed like the ultimate creative challenge to try and qualify in the most elemental ways all the ways in which we're aware and how that shifts. I mean, it seemed like literally a completely impossible project. But I thought, since I'm an English major and I've always been about internal experience, like reading literature or whatever, why not take a shot at it? Because maybe I can get away with it, and they would give me more of a break than they would give to some massively ambitious scientists trying the same thing. And what you very quickly realize, of course, you even knew this setting out, is that it's very hard to talk in any kind of to generalize about specific states of consciousness, or to be very specific about it, to say, they're this clearly delineated, because they're not, because they all blur one into the other. I mean, that's the whole thing about consciousness. It's always in flux. It's very fluid. The different states that I talk about in my book, they're really almost more like descriptions of tendencies than they are kind of standalone, impregnable destinations. But it's true. Nighttime mind and dreaming bleed into day, and the daytime mind bleed into night.
What is the nature of reality? The fuck if I know. The SatoriD is a creature of the Dreamtime. Some say reality is handcrafted Dreamtime. Some kind of hyperbolic superplacebo of perception. Reality is always plural and mutable. Which reality tunnel shall we slide down? Human society is a vast ad machine trying to sound like Grandma Two Sons. DNA is an alien virus. Turn previously immortal creatures into separate genders, only limited by death. The fear of death is the beginning of slavery. Humans live through their myths, only endure the realities. We're entrapped in these linguistic constructs. All that is metaphor. There's no complete reality of everything. There's only the everywhen.
Most in evidence in what's called the parasomnias, which I talk a little bit about in that. Should I mention that a bit? Because I find it kind of fascinating. What the parasomnias basically suggest is that consciousness can be remixed. That brain modules that are active at night can also be fired up during the day, and brain modules or parts of brain activity that are active during the day can be fired up at night. You get these unusual kinds of dissociations. And so one of the many examples I talk about in the book is sleep paralysis, which is when you wake up and you can't move. And the reason you can't move is that you still have muscle atonia, which is to say the part of your brain that paralyzes you when you're asleep. Because if you weren't paralyzed when you were dreaming, you would act out your dreams and you could get yourself hurt. This part still stays fired up. So you're there, you wake up, and you can't move, and it feels like you got something on your chest, and you often have full-on hallucinations from the dream world superimposed in the real world. So it's just an example of the ways in which these two areas, it's not so delineated, they bleed one into the other.
A wishful thought does not forge reality, nor a dream dreamt. Thoughts are the shadows of feelings, always darker, emptier. It is not the dream that is real, it's the dreaming. A wishful thought does not forge reality, nor a dream dreamt. Thoughts are the shadow of feelings, always darker, emptier. It is not the dream that is real, it's the dreaming.
Welcome to my mind. But I mean, the thing is, welcome to all of your minds, all of our minds, because we all can experience these states, and in fact, most of us do experience these states. What's amazing to me is they're not more well known. I mean, I think it's been kind of because the science community has not looked consistently at internal experience. I mean, they went through a little blip of activity around the turn of the century with William James and the introspectionist movement, but it was seen to be unsuccessful, and then the whole behaviorist thing came up. So there hasn't been a kind of scientific look at internal experience, and And because of that, there is now, but because of that, it remained for kind of New Age traditions and religious traditions, and meditation and spiritual experiences and lucid dreaming. That was in that seemed to be in that domain. So it's only now we've been able to kind of talk about it in a legitimate scientific way, and it's still resisted in a lot of quarters. So.
I don't know, but I think my body feels like it's already in the morning or something. I don't know.
Body? Uh-huh.
The other day it was like also, I felt like, I'm just gonna wake up and see.
Well, yeah. Hey, what's up, everyone? When you guys were talking about like waking up like super early or whatever and being like wide awake, I read this book one time. It's called The Wheel of Consciousness.
60 seconds around the wheel. You start with the hypnagogic state, the sleep onset, which is the mind becoming untethered and moving from a world filled with sensory input to a world filled with memory. Before we get into full-blown dreams, down into the slow wave, the deep relative absence of slow wave sleep, where there's not much meditation happen, deep sleep. Come back up, so watch little mini wake-ups in the middle of the night where you have a lot of prolactin in your body. You kind of wake up in your bed, but you go back down. You usually forget them because they're so slow. You go then into the REM dream, which everyone will know, but occasionally you can move into a lucid dream, which is when you become aware that you're dreaming. Then you move into the hypnopompic state. Again, the sleep ones aren't very strictly happen over a 24-hour period. The day ones get much weirder and they're not so prescribed. But hypnopompic state is the one when you're waking up. The next one I talk about is the trance state, being deeply focused and absorbed, and particular hypnotists take advantage of this to impose suggestions. So I visit a hypnotist. From there to the daydream, when we're off, pondering who knows what. The one after that is the the sensory motorism, which is basically a particular kind of alert awareness, so mindfulness is what the Buddhists would call it. And finally, the athlete zone, which of course all athletes will know. And actually the last one is the pure conscious event, which is nothingness, which is basically the mind neither awake nor asleep, but the fourth state, as the Indians call it. And you get behind the content of the mind and are able to enter this huge luminous empty space and you're one with everything, or something like that, which I don't experience, but I try to.
If you go back to like natural rhythms of sleeping, so like this guy, he was a journalist who wrote the book, and so like the one that he had to do is like for like a whole week he went like up in the cabin and only dealt with natural light, and so he had to program himself to the natural like cycles of light. And so once he did that, he was sleeping, and then he naturally woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's called like the witching hour. Like animals are up too at that time, and it's like for like 45 minutes. Like all these animals are like up. Like people like back in the day they used to be up and they would just like walk around and then like go back to sleep. And like that used to be like a natural pattern, and like the whole myth of the witching hour is like connected to that. And then I kind of try to have my own like rhythms of sleeping, but anyways, sometimes I wake up really early and I go on my walks, and then like I remember this one time I was walking around my neighborhood and there was like these two coyotes and they were looking at me, and I was amazing, and I was looking at them, and it was just like we're at this like corner of like the street, and then it was like what's up, and then like I was like, okay, like go. We're just like talking with our eyes. It was kind of funny, yeah. And they're looking at me, I was looking at them, and I'm like, okay, go, like to cross our paths, right? And so they cross my path, and then I walk past them, and they kind of look back at me, I look at them, and then we just walk, like, you know what I mean? It was just kind of funny, like how that interaction was, but it reminded me of that book, and that guy was talking about it. So like in the cabin, he like wakes up like at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he walks out, it's like a full moon, and then he could just like see like just like animals kind of like just like walking around and just like looking at each other, you know, just like chilling. But anyways, it was just
at the beginning,
yeah,
maybe the changes. Yeah, you were in Berlin, right? So yeah,
Hamburg.
Hamburg. Yeah, that's something to do with that, probably. Yeah. You know, the theory I share in the Imagine Station from Jean-Pierre Mallet, is actually about the dream cycle also, because it has to do with the double, the energetic body that we all have, that like we are the real one here, but there's another one who is like pure energy, and he's living in an accelerated time, and he does his work while we sleeping. So you need to sleep, StreamerD. Please. Yeah, so your double can do its job like correctly.
They kind of meet, like diverge, converge.
And I was also thinking about the major scales in music and minor scales in music, like night and day, and it's like 12 hours, 12 notes, 12 hours of night and 12 notes for the major, and so it is all embedded in the cycles.
Some stuff.
You know what the good news are, StreamerD? Avas. You know what the good news are? That we are made of billions of little things that can change everything. Yeah. So just let it flow, and put it in the vacuum. Yeah.
The center of the cyclone is the rising, quiet, central, low-pressure place in which one can learn to live eternally. Just outside this center is a rotating storm of one's own ego, competing with other egos in the sphere's high-velocity, circular dance. As one leaves the center, the roar of the rotating winds deafens one more and more as one joins this dance. One center thinking, feeling, being, one's own SatoriDs are in the center only, not outside. One's pushed and pulled, driven states, one's anti-Satori modes of functioning, one's self-centered hows are outside the center. In the center of the cyclone, one is off the wheel of karma, of life, rising to join the creators of the universe, the creators of us. Here we find that we have created them, who are us.